Ladies and gentlemen, a few moments ago, President Zelensky looked us in the eyes. He opened up his heart and he has made an announcement which we've now received officially. The request for the European Union to officially recognize Ukraine as a candidate country. It'll be up to us as a European Union to act in accordance with the times. It's going to be difficult. We know there are different views in Europe. There are various views on this subject, and it'll be up to the European Commission to produce an opinion on the basis of which the Council will take its responsibilities on board. The Council will have to seriously look at the symbolic, political and legitimate request that's been made, and we'll have to make the appropriate choices in a determined and clear-headed manner. Ladies and gentlemen, when this war was launched, Vladimir Putin thought that he would break European unity. He was wrong. He probably thought that he would face inertia, paralysis, the search for excuses to avoid taking decisions. But he was wrong. When he launched this action, he probably thought that he would take Ukraine easily and rapidly, but he was wrong because the Ukrainian people are resisting bravely. He probably thought that he would launch a fatal blow against that which we incarnate, freedom and the rule of law. But again, he's wrong. And in 1961, General de Gaulle said that every retreat excites the aggressor. It makes him redouble his pressure and makes his action easier. Western powers can best serve world peace by standing up firmly against aggression. That's the position of President Zelensky, and that's the position that we have to adopt. We have to stand firm and look at the aggressor, and we have to see President Zelensky as the incarnation of stability, security, enlightenment, and European values. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, President Michel. I now give the floor to the High Representative of the Union for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, Josep Borrell, for his statement.
Monsieur le Président du Conseil européen, Madame la Présidente.
President of the European
Dear members of the European Parliament, I will try to share with you my thoughts on the meaning of the tragic events that we are living and the provisional lessons that we can draw from them, especially for the common security and defense policy, which I had the honor to try to develop, and remains an intergovernmental policy, a policy which is yet in the hands of the member states, but cannot be implemented efficiently without the strong cooperation of the Commission competences. I think this is the moment in which the geopolitical Europe is being born. Ça, c'est l'acte de naissance de l'Europe.
This is the act of the birth of a geopolitical Europe. Once we are aware of the challenges that we face, the moment Europe must assume its responsibilities, the moment we become fully aware that for the first moment since the Second World War, we are seeing one country invade another. This is a country with nuclear weapons. This is part of its intimidation tactics. It makes me sick when I think about the historical analogies and how we can look back at the events at the start of the Second World War.
Of tragedy to which Europe is being confronted today. The return of tragedy, far from frightening us, should galvanize us. First, because it believes the idea that the European project had lost its momentum because the horizon of the war has been faded. Unfortunately not. This reminds us that the evil, the tragedy, and the war never fade away. And it's about the relationship with war, with the use of force, with the violence, who have been debating here. We have been debating for years to find out can Europe can counter it. And this is why in the recent years we have talked more about defense issues than in the past. And we have begun to set up joint military programs. Well, that's why the European Parliament itself has voted to set this European Defence Fund, and the Member States has created this European Peace Facility that now we are mobilizing in order to provide arms to Ukraine. The European Council, in the next weeks, will adopt the strategic compass. And with the invasion of Ukraine by Russia, we must amplify our reflection, adjust our means, and anticipate our responses. Because one of the lessons that we have to learn from the invasion of Ukraine is that more than ever, Europe must to think strategically about itself, its environment, and the world. This is no longer a luxury, it's a necessity. Europe must amplify its reflection on security issues, and the European Parliament has had an important role to play in this regard. We think we need to think about the instrument of coercion, retaliation, and counterattack in the face of reckless adversaries, because all we need to understand is that to make peace, we need to be two. But to make war is enough to be one. This is exactly what Mr. Putin is telling us. And that's why we have to increase our deterrent capacity a lot. We need to increase our deterrence capacity in order to prevent war. And it's clear that our deterrence has not been strong enough to stop Mr. Putin's aggression. But since this aggression has started, we have reacted in the last few days in a way that Mr. Putin didn't expect. And we are showing him that we will never sacrifice our freedom and the freedom of others on the altar of our well-being and prosperity. Being president of this parliament in 2007, I had the opportunity to tell to Mr. Putin eye to eyes on the aftermath of the killing of a journalist, Anna Politkovskaya. I told him, we are not going to change human rights by your gas. And this is the moment to repeat and to act on that. We will not share. We will not abandon the defense of our human rights and freedom, because we are more or less dependent on Russia. And we have to start working quickly, as the Commission has proposed, in order to cancel this dependency. Last Saturday, after having held another Foreign Affairs Council and attending the debate of the European Union Council, I was talking with you, President Michel, and you told me, are we doing everything we can? Is there something more than we can do? Is that enough? Are we so powerless? And you told me, think, do, act. We have to push member states in order to adopt decisions on SWIFT and to take Russia out of the financial system. Think about how can we arm Ukraine, not country by country, one after all, in an uncoordinated manner. And you encourage me to talk with member states again. In few hours, we agreed on using this European peace facility in order to bring financial support and coordinate member states on arming Ukrainian army and people. In less than 24 hours, another taboo had fallen. And the President of the Commission immediately, showing a strong leadership, start working in order to get an agreement with our international partners in order to make possible to switch off Russia from the financial system. And you know what? Now, half of the reserves of the Central Bank of Russia are completely out of their control. They are frozen. Will you imagine? This is the coercion capacity. 3 days ago, it was impossible, and now it's possible, and they are start feeling the consequences in terms of inflation and the fall of their currency. Yes, we have capacities. We have mobilized these capacities, and we have to continue doing so. Putting together the capacities with the member states and the European Union. I want to remember you that the European Peace Facility is not part of the budget that you vote. It's another budget. It's an instrumental fund managed by the member states, because we claim that we, European Union, we're a peaceful force and we cannot provide arms to anyone else. Yes, we can. Yes, we have done. On the next budget, think about it. When you vote the next budget, use your budgetary capacity. You have the budgetary capacity of this institution to put the ways and means in order to face the next crisis and the next Russian aggression. We are also working, en train de travailler dans le domaine international pour.
We are working in the international arena to try and build a coalition to condemn Russia within the UN. They had no votes in favor and only abstentions. There were countries traditionally allied to Russia that did not vote in favor of them. They abstained. And so now we need to build an international coalition. So in the next UN General Assembly, it will be the entire world that will condemn this aggressor. Nobody can look the other way. There is no justification for a powerful country attacking its weaker neighbor. You cannot speak of pacifism. You cannot have the aggressor and the attacker on the same footing. We have to be by their side. We have used our coercive capacity, not necessarily using weapons. When we talk about Europe being a hard power, people think only in military power, but there are other ways to exert hard power. Our coercive capacity is a way of influencing another's behavior, and this is not just done by weapons. It has been done by the European Commission, and extraordinarily successful measures as put in place by the Commission. So thank you, President von der Leyen. We're not talking about mobilizing missiles, but these sanctions can have a hugely important effect on a country. They will not allow Russia to spend the money that we have spent on their gas to fund this war. That is, ladies and gentlemen, I believe the most important lesson that we can draw from these tragic circumstances. We cannot simply call for the rule of law and hope that our trading and commercial relationships will help move everybody towards a more democratic path. The forces of evil, the forces that want to use physical violence as a way to resolve conflict, are still there. And against these types of forces, we have to show a much stronger capacity to act. We need to be more consistent. We need to be more united than we have been up to now. We have done a lot. I think we have surprised the world. I think we have surprised Putin by our rapid capacity to act, and we must continue along this path. This moment here in Parliament with your applause. That shows us that the EU institutions must continue on this path that we have started. This is the moment that Europeans understand they live in a dangerous world, and in order to confront that, we must have a stronger union. The pandemic has opened the door to innovative actions. It has helped us move along the path to greater unity when facing this virus. And now this tragic moment should give us fresh impetus to be ever more united and to counter these actions that threaten human life, security, and the prosperity of all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, High Representative. I now give the floor to the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, for her statement.
Madam President of the European Parliament, Mr. President of the Council, High Representative, Mr. President of the Ukraine, dear Volodymyr, Mr. Speaker of the Ukrainian Parliament, my honorable members, war has returned to Europe. Almost 30 years after the Balkan Wars and over half a century after Soviet troops marched into Prague and Budapest, civil defense sirens again went off in the heart of a European capital. Thousands of people fleeing from bombs camped in underground stations, holding hands, crying silently, trying to cheer each other up. Cars lined up towards Ukrainian western borders. And when many of them ran out of fuel, people picked up their children and their backpacks and marched for tens of kilometers towards our union. They sought refuge inside our borders because their country wasn't safe any longer. Because inside Ukraine, a gruesome death count has begun. Men, women, children are dying once again because a foreign leader, President Putin, decided that their country, Ukraine, has no right to exist. And we will never, ever let that happen and never, ever accept that. Honourable members, this is a moment of truth for Europe. And let me quote the editorial of one Ukrainian newspaper, the Kyiv Independent, published just hours before the invasion began, and I quote, "This is not just about Ukraine. It's a clash of two worlds, two polar set of values." End of quote. They are so right. This is a clash between the rule of law and the rule of the gun, between democracies and autocracies, between a rules-based order and a world of naked aggression. How we respond today to what Russia is doing will determine the future of the international system. The destiny of Ukraine is at stake, but our own fate also lies in the balance. We must show the power that lies in our democracies. We must show the power of people that choose their independent path freely and democratically. This is our show of force. And today, a union of almost 500 million people has mobilized for Ukraine. The people of Europe are demonstrating in front of Russian embassies all across our union. Many of them have opened their homes to Ukrainians fleeing from Putin's bombs. And let me thank especially Poland, Romania, Slovakia, and Hungary for welcoming these women, men, and children. Europe will be there for them, not only in the first days, but also in the weeks and months to come. That must be our promise altogether. And this is why we are proposing to activate the temporary protection mechanism to provide them with a secure status and access to schools, medical care and work. They deserve it. We need to do that now. And we know this is only the beginning. More Ukrainians will need our protection and solidarity. We are, and we will be there for them. Our union is showing a unity of purpose that makes me proud. At the speed of light, the European Union has adopted 3 waves of heavy sanctions against Russia's financial system, its high-tech industries, and its corrupt elite. And this is the largest sanctions package in our union's history. We do not take these measures lightly, but we feel we had to act. These sanctions will take a heavy toll on the Russian economy and on the Kremlin. We are disconnecting key Russian banks from the SWIFT network. We also banned the transaction of Russia's central bank, the single most important financial institution in Russia, and this paralyzes billions of foreign reserves, turning off the tap on Russia's and Putin's war. We have to end this financing of his war.
Lucidchart makes an...
And second, we target important sectors of the Russian economy. We are making it impossible for Russia to upgrade its oil refineries, to repair and modernize its air fleet, and to access many important technologies it needs to build a prosperous future. We've closed our skies to Russian aircraft, including the private jets of oligarchs. And make no mistake, we will freeze their other assets as well, be it yachts or fancy cars or luxury prosperities. We'll freeze that all together. And thirdly, in another unprecedented step, we're suspending the licenses of the Kremlin's propaganda machine. The state-owned Russia Today and Sputnik and all of their subsidiaries will no longer be able to spread their lies on to justify Putin's war and to divide our union. And these are unprecedented actions by the European Union and our partners in response of an unprecedented aggression by Russia. Each one of these steps has been closely coordinated with our partners and allies. The United States, the United Kingdom, Canada and Norway, but also, for example, Japan, South Korea and Australia. All of these days you see that more than 30 countries representing well over half of the world's economy have also announced sanctions and export controls on Russia. And if Putin was seeking to divide the European Union, to weaken NATO, and to break the international community, he has achieved exactly the opposite. We are more united than ever, and we will stand up in this war. That is for clear that we will overcome and we will prevail. We are united and we stay united. Honourable members, I am well aware that these sanctions will come at a cost for our economy too. I know this, and I want to speak honestly to the people of Europe. We have endured 2 years of pandemic, and we all wished that we could focus on our economic and social recovery. But I believe the people of Europe understand very well that we must stand up against this cruel aggression. Yes, protecting our liberty comes at a price, but this is a defining moment, and this is the cost we are willing to pay, because freedom is priceless, honourable members. This is our principle. Freedom is priceless. Our investments today will make us more independent tomorrow. And I'm thinking first and foremost about our energy security. We simply cannot rely so much on a supplier that explicitly threatens us. And this is why we reached out to other global suppliers, and they responded. Norway is stepping up. In January, we had the record supply of LNG gas. We're building new LNG terminals and working on interconnectors. But in the long run, It is our switch to renewables and hydrogen that will make us truly independent. We have to accelerate the green transition because every kilowatt hour of electricity Europe generates from solar, wind, hydropower or biomass reduces our dependency on Russian gas and other energy sources. This is a strategic investment. And my honorable members, this is a strategic investment because on top, less dependency on Russian gas and other fossil fuel sources also means less money for the Kremlin's war chest. This is also a truth. We are resolute. Europe can rise up to the challenge. The same is true on defense. European security and defense has evolved more in the last 6 days than in the last 2 decades. Most member states have promised deliveries of military equipment to Ukraine. Germany announced that it will meet the 2% goal of NATO as soon as possible. And our union, for the first time ever, is using the European budget to purchase and deliver military equipment to a country that is under attack. 500 million euros for the European Peace Facility to support Ukraine's defense. As a first batch, we will now also match this by at least 500 million euro from the EU budget to deal with the humanitarian consequences of this tragic war, both in the country and for the refugees. Honourable members, this is a watershed moment for our union. We cannot take our security and the protection of people for granted. We have to stand up for it. We have to invest in it. We have to carry our fair share of the responsibility. And this crisis is changing Europe. But Russia has also reached a crossroad. The actions of the Kremlin are severely damaging the long-term interests of Russia and its people. More and more Russians understand this as well. They are marching for peace and freedom. And how does the Kremlin respond to this? By arresting thousands of them. But ultimately, the longing for peace and freedom cannot be silenced. There is another Russia besides Putin's tanks, and we extend our hand of friendship to this other Russia. Be assured they have our support. Honourable members, in these days, independent Ukraine is facing its darkest hour. At the same time, the Ukrainian people are holding up the torch of freedom for all of us. They are showing immense courage. They are defending their lives. But they are also fighting for universal values, and they are willing to die for them. President Zelensky and the Ukrainian people are a true inspiration. And when we last spoke, he told me again about his people's dream to join our union. Today, the European Union and Ukraine are already closer than ever before. There is still a long path ahead. We have to end this war, and we should talk about the next steps. But I am sure nobody in this hemicycle can doubt that a people that stands up so bravely for our European values belongs in our European family. And therefore, honourable members, I say, long live Europe and long live a free and independent Ukraine. Me z vami, slava Ukrainie.
We're with you. Glory be to Ukraine.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, President von der Leyen. We now move to the speakers on behalf of the political group, starting with Manfred Weber for the EPP Group.
Der 24.
24th of February, significant date in Europe and the world. War has returned to Europe. And of course, it seems what we're doing here, it hardly measures up to what the Ukrainians are now doing. So right now, we're focusing on our admiration for the Ukrainians, with their president leading them, their strength, their love of liberty, their decisiveness. They are the heroes of the European way of life. The 24th of February is a day of freedom for Europe, from Dublin to Athens, from Lisbon to Riga. And the same feeling of shock everywhere, dismay with this aggression. On the other hand, admiration for the people of the Ukraine. They're fighting for us, they're fighting for our values. These days, this Kyiv moment of the 24th of February makes everyone European. This moment forces us to give clear answers. When President Zelensky asks us, are we welcome? May we become members of the EU? Do we belong? Then I say, on behalf of the largest party of Europe, yes, you are welcome. Yes, you belong to the European Union. You are friends. This Kyiv moment forces us to look at the alternatives. Putin is the brutal aggressor. He represents the opposite of our convictions for nationalism, for autocracy. This brutality of trying to have imperial influences, the opposite of us. We want to conquer borders and demonstrate respect to everyone and defend our democracy and defend our freedoms. This Kyiv moment also means we have to be honest. We have to make it clear that we have to take action. With these sanctions, we have an exemplary package. I'd like to thank everyone for the last day's work. We, as a group, we support these measures, but one thing is very clear. A few days ago, a week ago, we didn't really hear the same words. Some people were refusing to talk about Nord Stream 2 as a possible sanction. We weren't decisive enough. So today, that means we have to take action and we have to really abolish this unanimity in foreign policy. This Kyiv moment also means a strong NATO, but it also means a strong European pillar. And the EPP visited NATO troops in Lithuania, and I asked the commander, what's your greatest wish? And we say 50% of our time is to deal with the technical differences among, for example, the radios and the equipment. What we need is a European structure. That's what they were asking for us, those people who are now defending Europe. This Kyiv moment means we have to think big as Europe. So this conference on the future of Europe has to be rethought. We've concluded our citizens' dialogue. Now it's the right time to make this conference a genuine place to decide about the future of Europe, to have the courage together. And if we don't do it now, when are we going to do it? And this Kyiv moment demonstrates to us that we have to really look at the policies we're deciding. Energy policy, as Mrs. von der Leyen just said, we have to speed the energy transition up. We have to have new trade partners, new agreements on energy. Our Kyiv moment means for us that we are together bound to the US. With Joe Biden, we have to use this moment. It demonstrates how important it is to have how decisive our trade partners are for freedom and democracy. We have to have a new free trade agreement with the US to demonstrate this. It's the right time, this Kyiv moment, to look at the future development of Europe. A new age is dawning. We need endurance, but the European way of life is worth it. Freedom has no price. the price of freedom is something you pay when you lose it. And Ukrainians are demonstrating that today. And we stand with you, Ukraine.
Thank you, President Weber. I now give the floor on behalf of the S&D Group to Irache Garcia Perez.
Gracias, Presidenta.
Thank you, President. Putin's war against Ukraine marks the beginning of a new stage in Europe and in the world. These are historic times, and we need historic decisions. Financial and military support to Ukraine, deconnecting the main Russian banks from the SWIFT platform, the activation of the International Protection Directive to assist Ukrainian refugees, and banning the Kremlin's media machine are all part of a qualitative leap in our capacity to respond. Western democracies have achieved an admirable unity to face this challenge, and it's crucial that we maintain our unity given the serious challenges that we will continue to have to face. The 4 sanctions packages headed by Mr. Borrell are the first step in a long crisis that will raise new dilemmas. For example, how to continue to support Ukraine, or how can we react to probable Russian reprisals? Unity requires courage and sacrifice. It's only with courage and sacrifice that we can achieve the energy independence that we need to defeat Putin. Our utter commitment to a global energy order that's based on renewable energies over the long term needs to be complemented with the creation of strategic reserves of gas for the short term. We also need courage and sacrifice to welcome all the refugees who are fleeing war. We need shared responsibility there. The cowardly attack of Putin shows his real fear, which is democracy. A successful democratic transition in Ukraine needs to serve as an inspiration to those who bravely have taken to the streets in Russia. The fight for peace and freedom of the Russian and Ukrainian peoples require our support. We cannot rest until Putin is judged as a war criminal by the International Criminal Court. Putin's attack will also reveal his accomplices from the extreme European right and a model of living together of life which represses the opposition's, censors the media and denies individual rights. Currently in the cities and towns of Ukraine, it's not only their security and territorial integrity that's at stake, but the world in which we want to live. It can be a democratic world based on international law, diplomacy, and human rights, or it can be a different world based on brute force, spheres of influence, and violations of rights that should be universal. No tyrant will make us renounce our desire to forge alliances that are based on peace, which protects the sovereignty of nations, progress, freedom, and the integrity of our borders. History is never wrong. We can't leave Ukrainians alone, as the Spanish felt during the first half of the 20th century in the fight between fascism and democracy. The resistance of the heroic Ukrainian people will be the triumph of Western democracies. And let me just conclude with a personal comment. I'm proud of Europe, the Europe of today, the Europe that does not resign itself to what's going on, Europe that looks back to learn from history, but above all, looks forward to defend what we hold most precious, democracy and peace. Thank you.
I now give the floor on behalf of the Renew Europe Group to Stéphane Séjourné.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much, Madam President, Mr. President, High Representative. Let me start by welcoming the courage of the Ukrainian men and women who are fighting not just for their country, but their right to choose their own destiny. President Zelensky and the President of the Ukrainian Parliament. You are heroes of democracy. The European Parliament today has shown it is a strong ally of the Ukrainian people. Europe is a shield that protects its democracy and freedoms for all the peoples of Europe. Of all the decisions taken this week, let me just say you have the absolute support of our political group. There is huge work that has been done by the European institutions in order to put in place and make operational these sanctions and support measures for Ukraine. Alone or divided, I can't even imagine what Putin would have done to our continent. You have been up to this historic challenge. Let me